Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, joining me as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all that sorts of good stuff. And joining me here today, it's Monday, so you know Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett is here. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, I've still got all, 10 of my fingers? I did okay this 4th of July weekend. I did okay.
Was that a big concern usually for you on 4th of July?
Well, you know, I'm kind of a pyromaniac, so yeah.
And also joining us here today, we don't know what her vices are yet, but Kris Carr is here, ladies and gentlemen. Kris, how you doing?
I'm so great. I still have my liver intact after 4th of July, so
that's always a big
crushing
accomplishment
it
for everybody. And here, listen, guys, we do have a lot of stuff that we need to cover here today. We're going to be talking about, hey, listen, Stephen S. DeKnight from Spartacus talking about God of War. Is that something that could work? Is Marvel maybe the worst studio out there at deceptive and misleading advertises? Maybe. We got a brand new Mulan trailer. X-Men is officially a bigger flop than Fantastic Four. What does that mean, not just for X-Men, forget that, but what does that mean for the comic book genre as a whole, and a few other things as well. But before we get to any of those things, let's go right off the top with this. Speaking of franchises, one of the ongoing franchises of Sylvester Stallone is not just Rambo, and we know we got a new Rambo film coming. It's not just Rocky, we just had that Creed 2 not so long ago. But it's also his Expendables franchise that he has going on. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of people have been waiting for news and some information on what is he going to do with his franchise? What's he going to do with Expendables and all that kind of stuff? What's coming? There's been a lot of drama. They said for a while that there was going to be a new one, and then he backed out. Remember this about a year or so ago? Then he backed out and said he was leaving the franchise because he didn't like the direction things were going, or they had creative differences, blah, blah. Then about 6 months or so ago, he said maybe he's back on board. Well, now the 4th of July hit, Rob, and Sylvester Stallone came out and said that, hey, I'm ready to go. I've got my idea now. I'm now putting the story together for Expendables 4. Here's my thoughts on this, Rob, and then I got to hear your response to this, because on the one hand, the Expendables films are kind of fun. I thought the second one was actually great. I thought Expendables 2 was an excellent amount of fun. The first one was fun. It was okay. Third one, yeah, I didn't like as much as I really wanted to. But the second one was really good. But here's the question that I have for it, though.
Uh-oh.
When they made the first Expendables in 2010,
yes,
Sylvester Stallone was 63 years old.
Yes.
All right. And we were all like, no, he was 64. He was 64 years old when he made the first one. The first one came out. And we were like, holy crap, look at Sylvester Stallone still go. Look at that man go. He is looking great. All this kind of stuff. Ooh-ha, right? Good for Sylvester Stallone. So, Expendables 3 came out 5 years ago, right? At the age of 68. And we're like, whoa, he's still doing it. He's still doing it. Today, Sylvester Stallone is 73 years old. He's 73 years old, which means he wouldn't, at minimum, he'll be 74 when they start shooting in Expendables 4 if it happens. So my question, Rob, is when he was 63, it was like, wow, look at him go. But at 73 or 74, can we see Sylvester Stallone still as a commando unit, head grunt dude, out in the field doing this thing? Can we still see that? Now, I say that still understanding that we just got a pretty great Rambo trailer, being at the age that he's at, but he seems to be playing his age in the Rambo trailer, but in Expendables, he's still, he's still him. I don't know. Can an Expendables 4 at this point still work?
Dude, I don't want to be ageist. I really don't. But he's also got the Escape Plan franchise too. They're doing that. They've got the third Escape Plan coming as well. And I believe in my mind when I look at Sylvester Stallone, he makes me believe in him. And maybe that's just me because I'm taking on my own baggage into it. But I still believe that Sylvester Stallone can kick some ass. I mean, Rambo, they made him look grizzled. Obviously, he looks like a ranch hand, But in the Expendables movies, he's still jacked up. He's still all yoked, and although I intellectually know that he's like going to be 75 years old. But for some reason, I still believe, man.
Now, I have sources.
Still believe.
I just gotta say here, I have sources here, Rob, that tell me that that's older than you. Like
it is, man. I got one foot in the grave myself.
I mean, seriously, could you see you or I playing like the head of a commando unit in Expendables at this point, let alone Stallone, who's like 20 years older than us or more. And I mean, but look, if I could look half as good as Sylvester Stallone looks tomorrow, I'll be a very, very happy man. I mean, the guy's jacked.
I was just talking on this show about how, before we started the show, about how I was looking for this new die-cast Gundam figure. So basically, I'm 12. So despite the fact that I have one foot in the grave, I'm still collecting Japanese die-cast super robots. You know, in Kill Bill, when the bride says, I need Japanese steel, I walk around and I'm always saying, I need Japanese die-cast. So even though I'm a middle-aged guy with one foot in the grave. So I give it up for Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, absolutely. Man.
Give it up.
So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that, hey, the Expendables films was great, but can we see him doing this? Or are you thinking, are you kidding me? Look at Stallone. Of course he can still do it. What do you guys think about this? Jump down in the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's go on to this other thing off the top. And this just dropped maybe about an hour ago this morning. We know that Disney has another live action film on the way. No, not Lion King. No, not Mulan. But rather Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, the sequel to the first film that I didn't like all that much. Hey, Angelina Jolie was great in it. I thought she was wonderful in it, but I really didn't care all that much for the first Maleficent film, unfortunately. But the first trailer came out and looked pretty good. And now this second trailer is here, Rob. And I'm telling you what, I actually thought the second trailer looked kind of good. Like, I actually thought it looked all right. Anyway, you just had a chance to watch the second Maleficent trailer. What did you think about it?
I liked it. You know, it gave us a lot more of the story. So from a story standpoint, I was much more intrigued than I was. There's even a little bit of a twist that I was not suspecting in this trailer. And, you know, a movie has to make me intellectually interested, if that makes any sense. It has to have an idea. Even I'll watch any genre movie, but to be really interested, there's got to be a central core theme or something that I gravitate towards. And there's political infighting here. There's different factions doing things. I didn't realize some of the political machinations that are going on in this movie. And I was like, that made me really interested to see how it all plays out. Because there's more to Maleficent than meets the eye, apparently.
Yeah, and it plays. So it took what they did in that first trailer, kind of built on that. Kris, you just had a chance to watch this trailer. What were your thoughts on it?
You know, Rob, I think you're reading a lot into this trailer. I didn't see it as that. I saw it as like, mother-in-laws, what's happening here? Look at these ladies fight. I'm excited to see more about it because my initial gut reaction was, whoo, this seems like a really weird dinner party that got taken too far. I'm hoping that I see those political aspirations. Obviously, Michelle Pfeiffer's character is going to be set up to be the big bad. It's not going to just be, well, I'm her real mommy now. Oh, let's fight about it. There's definitely going to be more there that meets the eye. But as of right now, I'm not super stoked about this movie. I also am not someone who was in love with the first Maleficent. Yeah. I thought they did some amazing work in that. The scene after she's lost her wings is so incredible and so powerful, and what a strong metaphor that was. But I didn't ask for a sequel. So I'm gonna hold off judgment. The very end of that trailer makes me hopeful.
Yeah.
That was interesting. The mom dynamic, miss me with that.
The thing that gives me a little bit more interest and hope for this one than for the last one, because again, I wasn't a fan of the first one, was the fact that, oh, wait a minute, are they actually gonna make her a villain? Mm-hmm. Are they actually going to make her a bad guy? Because I'm so sick and tired of these movies that say, oh, now you're going to see it from the viewpoint of the bad guy. And then it turns out they're not a bad guy at all. They're just misunderstood. And that's kind of what they did with the first Maleficent. And that's not why I disliked the film. I just didn't think the film worked. But it did annoy me that they played it off was, come see the story from the point of view of the bad guy. It's like, no, she was the hero.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see if they actually did now show her going over the edge. And then maybe she becomes the villain now. I don't know. So I'll be interested to see if they go that direction. Even if they do, it won't mean the movie will be good automatically. But I got to say, as somebody who didn't like the first one, I am liking this trailer. I think it does look intriguing. Mommy issues or not, I think it does look really cool. What did you guys think about the Maleficent trailer? Did you like it? Did it work for you? Did you like the first film? Does this one look like it might be better, worse, same thing? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With the off the tops out of the way, let's now move into our main topics today. How do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's simple. See, you guys come up with them by going to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you get there, you'll see a form, fill it out with your topic or question, hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured here on the John Campea Show. With that down and out of the way, Kris, what is our first main topic today?
First, we're hearing from Devin Bell. What is your take on Stephen DeKnight possibly directing God of War movie? I would love to hear your thoughts on this. And John, you already brought up that Stephen's known for Spartacus. Do you think he's a good fit for this?
Yeah, so this was a really interesting thing. This actually came up a number of days ago where Stephen S. DeKnight was actually talking a little bit. Now, Stephen S. DeKnight, who I will always be in his debt because he did do Spartacus, of course, which is my third favorite all-time series ever in television. He also, was a showrunner on Daredevil, which is great. Unfortunately, he also directed, Pacific Rim 2, which was not so good. So he's got a couple of wins, got a loss. Nobody has a perfect resume. That's fine. But anyway, he was talking a little bit about God of War. And look, not a lot of video games lend themselves to possibly be a great movie. I actually did a review a while ago of the God of War cutscene movie, like a 14-hour version of it. And I will tell you this. It may rival, Rob, because often when we talk about video games that have really great cinematic potential,
Right.
and really, we'll often go to Last of Us for obvious reasons. We'll talk about Last of Us stuff like that. I'm telling you what, God of War, which won Video Game of the Year, God of War may very well rival Last of Us, or maybe even exceed as far as its narrative storytelling. I'm not talking about gameplay. I'm just talking about its pure narrative storytelling. It's immersive. It's got depth to it. The characters are all multidimensional. It's got an epic scope to it. It's got this great mythology to it. And when you get to the end of this story, you're like, what? And you want to see more. You want to see where it's going. Very, very few. Everybody says my favorite video game is very cinematic. Well, to a degree by video game standards, but there are a couple that truly are, and this is one of them. I'll tell you what, this video game would make a great movie. It would just flat out, if you just follow the story of the game, and I know everybody says that about their favorite games, and 95% of the time that's not true. But this one, you follow the story of this game, you just, by default, you have a really potentially great movie on your hands. Now, Stephen DeKnight was talking about it, and he said a couple of interesting things. One of the things he said was, yeah, I could totally see doing it. Dave Bautista would be a great, lead for this, which I thought was interesting, but okay. He thought Dave Bautista would be a great lead for this. But he also started talking about it being rated R and all that kind of stuff. And this is what Stephen S. DeKnight had to say. He said the following. It's funny because when I sat down with Sony, the Sony PlayStation people, so he's obviously had conversations with Sony about this. One of the first things we both said is R-rated, because I always use the original Conan the Barbarian as my touchstone, that it needs to be R-rated. I don't think there is a way to tell that story and make it PG, nor should it be. And thankfully, because of Deadpool, people are much more willing to try that R-rated there with genre work now and again, which he's completely true about. So yeah, without a doubt, R-rated. I mean, it's not as far as Spartacus, that was more NC-17, but definitely R-rated, he said in there. I'm going to tell you what, Rob, right off the top of my head, the first thing I'm going to do is disagree with Stephen DeKnight. I don't think God of War needs to be R-rated. I'm cool with it being R-rated, but I don't recall a lot of stuff in that game that would require something above a PG-13. Like, whenever you do Transformers with, Optimus Prime can take out his sword and start chopping off the heads of Decepticons. That's fine, because it's not human beings. It's something different. It's something sci-fi or mythological or whatever. No problem. And so it gets PG-13. I didn't see a lot of stuff in the God of War game that would require it to be rated R. Again, I'm very curious if they do, and I'm all for it if they do. I just don't think it's required. Could Stephen S. DeKnight do a good job on this? God, if he could do this the way he handled narrative in Spartacus, yes. Is it a guaranteed big hit? No. But if they were to announce tomorrow, Rob, that Stephen S. DeKnight, who's clearly already been talking with Sony, if they were to announce tomorrow that he's going to do it, I got to admit, I'd be excited about it. How do you feel about it?
Well, I got to disagree with you because I want to see. I guess it would be about Kratos, right? Kratos.
Yeah.
I want to see bloodletting. I want to see axes and swords and dismemberment and disemboweling. I want to see a blood like in Conan.
But if it's big, giant mythological monsters, you can do that without it needing to be rated R, right? Like, couldn't you do all of that?
I guess.
I mean, like Optimus Prime chopping off heads of Transformers.
Yeah, But yeah, I just think that if you're going to have that kind of violence, though, because look, metal on metal is one thing, but flesh on flesh, even if it's mythological flesh, once you show people getting their members dismembered, it gets. I think it would get an R for violence. I mean, I don't see it being sexual necessarily. It wouldn't push NC-17, but. That kind of violence, there's going to be a lot of bloodletting. Because it isn't just mythological creatures, it's probably people too.
I guess maybe. I think you and I want to see the same thing. It's just that you're thinking for them to give us what you and I want to see, that puts an R on it. And I'm thinking an MPAA may still just give it a PG-13.
Maybe,
but
maybe
not. You might be right though. Like maybe with the sheer amount of it, and maybe if they do it with more human beings, and look, I wouldn't put it by them putting some sexual content. I mean, if you're going to get R, what's stopping you?
Yeah, it's if you're going back into the ancient times, why not? But I think that really it always comes down to me. It has to be a great story and a great character. At the end of the day, you can have all the bloodletting and sexual activity you want, but if the character's not great and the story's not great, you just don't care.
Right.
No matter how much bloodletting and fornication they throw at you, give me a great character. I want to see that character become an indelible character. I want him to be I want him to be a combination of all the great characters, but in that realm. I don't think we've ever been given. The last time I was that interested was Jason the Argonauts, and I think I was 6. So I want to see the definitive look at this film. I want it to be gritty, not like Clash of the Titans with the whole thing was CG. I want to see something that's raw and present and bloody.
Well, if they can follow the story of the game, they've got a lot of potential. Guys, what do you think about this? Number one, do you think a God of War movie could work? And secondly, what would you think, if all the signs point to this, what would you think if a Stephen DeKnight was actually directing and helming something like this? Do you think that's something that raises the potential, or is it something that concerns you? Jump down the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to our second main topic today. Kris, what is our second main topic today?
We're now moving on to Marvel with Jose Irizarry. Hi, John. Greetings and salutations. I love Marvel films. However, I'm getting really irritated by the recent trend of Marvel including scenes in the trailers that are not in the movie. I know other studios do it, but Marvel has increasingly become the worst offender. At what point is this for misdirection purposes or just outright false advertising? And John, you've been covering Marvel movies for a while now, not just as a fan going to see them, but as a content creator, as a YouTuber. Do you feel let down when you see these scenes not in the film, or do you think it's okay?
We just had last year one of the biggest examples of that, of course, with the big misdirect in the Infinity War stuff showing Hulk on the battlefield in the movie, right? So that's one of the biggest examples ever of all time. And then again, we just saw it now, Rob. Like we just saw it in Spider-Man Far From Home with the scene in the movie where Spider-Man is with the police officers. He stops some robbers, and the little joke, when you are, man, no, man, I'm too busy doing your job. Hey, that little scene. That's not in the movie. There's a couple other little things in some of the marketing that isn't in the movie as well. Is Marvel the worst at this? And is it becoming deceptive? Like that's what I've heard some people saying. Like it's getting to the point that Marvel, some people are saying, is just being really deceptive and misleading in their marketing. And Rob, I'm going to tell you right now, I disagree. I disagree. I don't think that's the case. Now, first of all, do they put stuff in their trailers that doesn't end up in the movies? Yes, but as it was pointed out in the message sent in, that happens with a lot of studios, and we all know why. A lot of times these trailers are put together long before the final edit of the movie is done, right? And a lot of times, like with this situation with Spider-Man with the robbers, that was going to be in the movie. That was a part of the movie, and they made a decision in the late stages that, you know what, the movie doesn't need that scene. And so they pulled it out, but the trailers were already done. And the trailers were part. And we've seen that happen not just with Marvel, we've seen that happen with a number of films all the time. It always has happened, it always will happen. Because Rob, as you pointed out in the show before, these trailer houses, they get given the footage long before a final edit of the film is done, and they got to get these things put together. So we often see things that don't end up in the movie. That's not deceiving, that's just part of the process. It happens. But Rob, the other thing to me here, the big difference is this. There's a difference between a scene being in the movie that then gets cut out and a studio flat out deceiving and misleading its audience.
Right.
And here's what I mean by that. You look at something like Infinity War. They showed us shots with Hulk at the Battle of Wakanda, and he's not in there. Is that deceptive? I would argue no, because Hulk being in the battlefield Wakanda did not fundamentally alter or change or give us the wrong idea about what the nature of this movie is going to be. It didn't. Showing Hulk in that just misled us and misdirected us about which character would be in that scene, but it didn't present us with a false idea of what kind of movie is Infinity War going to be. It didn't give us the wrong idea about what's the tone of this movie going to be. Even though they showed us a shot with the Hulk when he's clearly not there, it still perfectly communicated the tone and the nature and the type of movie that we were getting. I juxtapose this, Rob, against two examples that I quite often bring up when talking about deceptive marketing. One we just talked about last week, which was Bridge to Terabithia, a Disney film. Worst offender of this I've ever seen, where they purposely, even though everything you saw in the trailers was in the movie, they put their trailers together in such a way that made you believe it was a certain kind of movie you were getting. Fun, family, children discovering a magical kingdom in the woods kind of movie, when in reality it was depressing and dark and a child dies and it's about this other kid dealing with the fact that his friend is dead and all this. It presented a different kind of movie, even though every single shot in the trailers were actually in the film. Another example of this, I think it was the second Mission Impossible 2, where Anthony Hopkins is almost in all of the trailers. Anthony Hopkins is everywhere in the trailers. It leads you to believe that this is a movie that stars Tom Cruise and Anthony Hopkins, when in reality, Anthony Hopkins maybe has 3 minutes of screen time in the movie, and he's in a little bit at the beginning, a little bit at the end. But the trailers was Tom Cruise, Anthony Hopkins, Mission Impossible 2, and it completely misled the audience into assuming a false idea about what they were going to get when they went to this movie. This Spider-Man scene not being in the movie in no way for me changed the type of movie or my perception of what the type of movie it was going to be and what it actually delivered. So I'm going to say, yeah, Marvel does it as much, maybe even more than anybody else, having little things in their trailers that are in the movies. But ultimately, I don't think it's important. It's inconsequential. It's not deceptive because it's not fooling us to what kind of movie we're getting or the nature of the movie we're getting. It's just little inconsequential things. And for the most part, it's nobody's fault. It's just part of the process. Anyway, Rob, this has become a big issue for some people. As you're looking at it, do you see it as deceptive? Do you see it as just a part of the process? Do you see it getting any better? Do you see it getting worse? How would you answer that?
I'm with you. I mean, movies are an iterative process. They're constantly being changed, and they're constantly being made shorter. And these Marvel movies always are, for the most part, over 2 hours now.
Yeah.
And we now know that these missing scenes from this movie specifically are going to be released as part of a short film that's going to be on the home video release of Spider-Man Far From Home, because the director didn't want to cut them. They were great scenes about what was Spider-Man's life like now, his prep. We've talked about how they were deceiving us about the passport. They couldn't show that it was 5 years later. So there's that scene when he gets his passport, and we're going to see that little short film, whatever it's going to be called, is going to actually be included on the home video release, which is interesting. But I think, look, as you make movies and you're cutting them down and you're working them and you're all through the editorial phases of a film, things are lost. And that's just part of that process. And like you pointed out so astutely, these trailers are made 6 months in advance. So the trailer companies are given, draw from this footage. And sometimes that footage winds up gone from the final film. So like you were saying, if they're still selling you the movie that you eventually saw, which I think the Spider-Man Far From Home marketing did,
yeah,
we didn't get a different movie. There wasn't anything like, wait a minute, this isn't the movie I thought I was going to see. It's not like that. It's just, okay, a scene or two has been excised from the film, which we're going to get to see on home video if you still buy your Blu-rays like I do.
And by the way, there's another film in recent memory was really bad for that, which was a great movie, Star Wars Rogue One, which is fantastic, but they reshot a lot of key stuff.
Yeah.
So like 50% of the material that the trailer houses got to cut those trailers together ultimately wasn't in the film. It's like, wait a minute, where are all these scenes? But again, it didn't misrepresent what the movie was. It was just a lot of material in it that didn't end up in there. So a Star Wars movie is a big culprit of that too.
Yep.
Guys, the question though is ultimately for you. Do you feel that it is an egregious thing done against the audience when there is something in a trailer that doesn't make it into the movie? Do you think just the nature of that is by definition deceptive, or do you think that's a little bit of a stronger definition the way me and Rob see it? I want to know what you guys think. Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, with that down out of the way, let's get on to main topic number 3. Kris, what is our third main topic today?
Now we're hearing from Hans Guger. Hey, John. It's a Hans Gruber who dates only like younger dudes, I think.
I love it.
Hey, John, only started watching your show a few months ago, but now I'm hooked. Thanks for putting out quality material every day.
Oh, thanks, Hans.
I just saw that Disney dropped a teaser for the live-action Mulan coming out next spring. Did you get a chance to watch it? What are your thoughts? It looks incredible. I agree. I think this looks amazing, and I'm really excited about it. Are you excited about it, Rob?
I am. I mean, we've been talking a lot about nerd circles have been buzzing about these live action remakes of Disney movies. And I thought, look, this looked great to me. I loved Asian martial arts movies. I've loved movies set in Asia my whole life. And looking at this, I'm like, all right, this looked like a cross between The Last Emperor meets, I don't know, Zoo Warriors of Magic Mountain. I'm in. Bring it on. And I find nothing wrong with this trailer. And somebody's like, well, the dragon better be in it or my childhood's ruined. I'm like, I'm sure there's going to be a dragon in this movie at some point. I'm willing to bet. But that's a pretty big special effect. It hasn't been done yet. But it looked great to me. She looks great. I love seeing Rosalind Chow from Star Trek The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine coming back. Bring it on. I'm in.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I thought the trailer was great. And look, this isn't it's the same story as the animated movie, but it's not the animated movie. And hate to break it to you, there is not going to be a dragon.
Come on.
The rumor that was going around the other day about the dragon being removed and instead there's going to be a phoenix, I reached out to source. I can confirm for everybody 100%. No dragon, unless there's some little cameo of a dragon statue in the background that looks like whatever. There is going to be a phoenix. So I had confirmed for me that there is going to be a phoenix in this movie, so you can take that part to the bank. But they are clearly going for something. This, to me, felt like a Steven Spielberg kind of historical epic, with the scope and everything like this. I thought it looked great. I thought it felt great. And the tone of it, you suddenly get a chirpy, funny little dragon popping up. Hey there, Mulan. Like, it's not going to work. As great as Eddie Murphy was and did it in the animated thing, it worked in that context. When you're watching the tone of this trailer, I'm like, no, that stuff wouldn't work. And also, I really feel, again, watching this tone, which I thought looked amazing, songs won't work here. Mm-hmm. I just don't think they will. Now, I'm sure if they did them, they would find a way to make it work. I'll give them all the credit for that. But to me, this looks like I was intrigued by Mulan. Mulan. After this trailer, I'm telling you what, I'm dying to see this thing. And, I've had some issues with some of the stuff that Disney has done with these. Obviously, we were just talking about Maleficent and stuff like that. They have dropped the ball a number of times. And I was curious about it, but this trailer seems to be right on the money for me. I'm excited to see it flat out. But anyway, Kris, you had a chance to watch this trailer yourself. What did you think about it?
I'm so excited about it. I think it looks amazing. And the Phoenix thing that you were talking about, I think what's great here is we're going back to that OG Chinese fable,
Right.
That goes back with that story that's from like 300 AD. We're following the actual storyline. We're paying a lot more special care to honoring that story, honoring the actual tale of Mulan. Things like make a man out of you, we're not going to do that in 2019. Come on. Not having Mushu in here.
It could work. I mean, today, that could work today.
It'd be a little weird in that we'd be like, this song seems very, very sexist. But also, I mean, I was upset at first. There's no Li Shang. That bummed me out. But I think this is going to be a really, really well done story. People are never happy either way with these Disney remakes. Either you want to paint by numbers and we're not satisfied by that. Look at Beauty and the Beast. Sometimes that was shot for shot what they did in the animated film. And then people were clamoring, well, what was the point of this then if they don't do enough different things? This is such a different movie. This looks epic and bombastic, and I'm so excited about it. And if you want songs, go watch the original. It's amazing. It's my dad's favorite Disney movie, actually. I think he wishes I would go to war for him. But you can go watch the original if you want the original.
You know what
Open
else
yourself
too? Call me crazy, but for some strange reason, I just keep thinking about Falkor, the luck dragon
yeah.
from Neverending Story, which I've been singing. I don't know why. I just keep singing the Neverending Story.
Well, you
theme.
just watched Stranger
Stranger
Things
Things,
3.
yeah.
I was going to say that. I was going to say that. I was going to let everybody figure that one out. But okay, yes, it's true. I'm Atreyu.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, to me, it's just like worry about what the task at hand.
Yeah.
The task at hand is make a great movie out of this mythology and of this ancient story. And to me, it looks fantastic. And I know there's a lot of people who love the original animated and they were hoping to see the songs and all that kind of stuff. And I respect that. I see that. But at the same time, it's like, look at what we're getting. It looks fantastic. Take your pre-existing expectations out of it for a second and just look at it for what it is. A trailer to an upcoming movie. I think it looks wonderful. Doesn't mean everybody will, though.
But you know what else, John? We talked earlier before we saw this trailer, I want to say like 6 months ago, about this movie and how it was their bid to actually go for a Best Picture nomination.
Yeah.
Remember that? When I was watching this, I'm like, wow, this is epic. This is really going towards, I think, a really highbrow. They're trying to raise the bar for their own adaptations of their original material. And I thought they did a phenomenal job. I mean, this looked like Oscar bait to me.
Yeah, and you're right. This could be a big prestige play for them as well. And it's got all the makings of it. Now, of course, it's just a trailer. This movie might suck. I mean, absolutely. This is just a trailer. But if what we're talking about is the trailer, I got to call it and see it. I think the trailer looks great. Question is, guys, what did you think about the trailer? Did you think it looked good like we do? Or maybe you thought, without the songs and without that charm that the animated thing has, it just doesn't have the magic for me or anything else? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know what you guys think. Okay, with that down, let's move on to our fourth main topic today. Kris, what is our fourth main topic?
We're hearing from Greg Tillman. Hi, guys. I'm with you that X-Men Dark Phoenix wasn't as bad as some made it out to be. I even found it a bit enjoyable. Sadly, though, I just read a report that film is about to complete its theatrical run. It's positioned to be a bigger flop than the recent Fantastic Four. Beyond X-Men, do you think the result of Dark Phoenix could be a concern for the comic book movie genre as a whole? Thanks. Now, I don't really think this is a big issue, John. I don't see it as a red flag. Do you see this as something that people should be worried about?
I'll tell you what. Yes. Yes, I do. And not for the X-Men franchise, because the X-Men franchise was wrapping up anyway. The X-Men franchise was coming off one of their weaker films in X-Men Apocalypse. And I agree. I did not think X-Men Dark Phoenix was nearly as bad as some people made it out to be. I also wouldn't call it a good film. But for me, it had its redeeming qualities. So I'm not really worried about it. Everybody knew it was the last one. I'm not worried about it in all that sense. And they're right. The report came out in Forbes that, although this movie, I believe, made more at the box office than the recent Fantastic Four, it also costs a lot more than Fantastic Four. And after you do the math, this movie, X-Men Dark Phoenix, actually lost the studio more money than the acknowledged across the board flop of Fantastic Four. It actually lost more money than Fantastic Four did. By that definition, it's a bigger flop. Does it raise concerns for the X-Men franchise moving forward? Not at all. Everybody knew this one was coming to an end. We're going to get a fresh restart in a few years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever. Not worried about that per se. But I'll tell you what, Rob, it does for me raise a bit of a red flag for the comic book movie genre in general. Because it's not just X-Men Dark Phoenix. Let's look at, remember, earlier this year, or it might have been late last year, Forbes infamously put out this things like, no comic book movie isn't going to be a hit. Remember that? And of course, then Josh Trank put out this great tweet that said, hold my beer, talking about his own Fantastic Four film. But still, we're off this age that comic book movies are the dominant force of the box office right now. Nothing can stop them. And, got these big major trades saying they're never going to fail, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? It's 2019 now. Let's look at this. There have been 3 major comic book films this year that, while they haven't all lost money, they haven't exactly blew up the box office. You're looking at 2 of them. Let's look at Hellboy. Major comic book film, big bombastic trend. Now, granted, it wasn't a good film, so that kept some people away. Look at this number, guys. $21.9 million worldwide. That's not opening weekend. That's not just domestic. $21.9 million worldwide. X-Men Dark Phoenix was a major money loser. Made $245 million worldwide. We've got comic book movies that open up bigger on opening weekend domestically alone than what this film made worldwide. Shazam, which made money, it was profitable, but $364 million worldwide, the lowest grossing DC film yet. Profitable, great movie, but it comes in at $364 million, coming off of another DC film that made $1 billion. Now, this is all in the same calendar year. We've now had 3 films this year that at the very least underperformed. Now, of course, you can say Spider-Man just came out of the gates huge, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. Obviously, we've had we've had Avengers Endgame, made huge amounts of money. But Rob, I'm telling you this, I'm not going to sit here and say, this marks the end of the comic book genre era. I'm not saying that. But I also believe that these studio heads have to at least be a little bit concerned right now, though, especially those that make these comic book movies, a little bit concerned going, well, wait a minute. This isn't indestructible armor. This genre isn't infallible. These aren't guaranteed moneymakers. We've had 3 in half of a year. In half of 1 year, Rob, where a couple have lost the studios major amounts of money. One of them made money, but was the lowest of its entire franchise at this point. Yeah, we had Endgame. Yes, we got Spider-Man, but this is 3 in a year. Rob, I don't know what to exactly put our finger on here, but I guarantee you Kevin Feige and Walter Hamada are smart enough guys that they're going, okay, let's take an evaluation here. Even though none of these films are Marvel films, I guarantee you Kevin Feige's going, okay, let's evaluate here. Let's see what's going on. Because I think this could be, at the very minimum, concerning. I'm not saying it's doom. I'm not saying this is leading to the end. But I'm going to use the word concerning, and I think they should be. Rob, you see these numbers and these facts coming out now. X-Men just lost all this money. Do you think there's anything that overall the industry should be worried about? Or do you think that, probably like a lot of other people do, that this is just a blip on the radar?
No, look, it all comes down, I just said it earlier, it all comes down to great characters and a great story. Just because something is derived from a comic book and it's about superheroes, that means nothing to me. I don't think that means anything to audiences either. What they want is to see great characters and great stories realized on the big screen, whether it's from a novel, whether it's a TV series adaptation put on the big screen, or whether it's a superhero movie. And the problem was, we've been given great X-Men movies before. So we got Days of Future Past. We had X-Men 2. We had Deadpool. We had Wolverine and Logan. We had movies that people loved of these beloved characters. So you need to at least make it to that level. And X-Men Dark Phoenix is adapting one of the classic X-Men storylines that anybody who likes the X-Men either saw it on the 90s animated series, who saw X-Men The Last Stand, it was adapted badly, or has read the comics, and then we get another mediocre adaptation. When we have movies like Infinity War and Endgame in the theater, when you're going to get Dark Phoenix, that's the equivalent of the Infinity War for the X-Men universe. And if you're not given that, it's going to disappoint everyone. So they had failed before they had even shot a frame, because the script that they greenlit was not the story that everybody was expecting to see. That was the mistake that they made. And with Hellboy, we read about the director and the producer fighting on set. No one knew who to listen to. You can't make movies that way. I think those were examples of not comic book films failing, but they were examples of movies failing. And that's what I think is the real takeaway from all this. Shazam, I think, was a movie that didn't connect because it was a little bit schizophrenic, at least it was for me. And it didn't go down one path. It kind of wanted to have it both ways. I liked a lot of Shazam. I didn't love Shazam, but I think Shazam was good enough that a lot of people loved it, like you loved it. But I think what this shows is that at the end of the day, movies have to be good no matter where they come from. Nobody is going to go see a movie just because it has superheroes.
I don't know. I think we have seen examples in the past of some comic book movies that maybe weren't deserving of big money, and they got it because they just have superheroes. I mean, even just beyond that, let's stay in the sci-fi fantasy genre. There are a buttload. I can back up a pickup truck of Transformers movies that are absolute garbage that joined Billion Dollar Club. That joined the Billion Dollar Club, and they were awful. And I just think when you're looking at a major comic book franchise, I think there's a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, I don't think nearly as many people have any concept of what the Dark Phoenix saga in the comic book is amongst the average movie-going audience. So I don't think a lot of people really cared about that one way or the other. The trailers maybe didn't sell them on it, but that's another thing altogether. Hellboy making only $21 million. We've heard of other movies with bigger behind-the-scenes disasters going on like that, and they open to more than $21 million, let alone a full $21 million thing. And while I understand not everybody loves Shazam, 91% critic rating. The audience rating for it is through the roof. People loved and adored this film, and yet it made like a third, or less than a third, maybe a quarter. Yeah, closer to a third of what Aquaman made. And it strikes me when you get a collection like that, Rob, in a 6-month period, in just 6 months, less than 6 months, really. And you know what, I'll tell you this. I'm going to go more into this at Comic-Con when we do our Masters of the Web panel, but to me, a part of this has something to do with Endgame. That Endgame has kind of, both leading up to it and now coming out of it, Endgame has kind of been like seen as the ultimate peak of what you can do with comic book movies. It's the thing they built up to for 10 years and 22 films and blah, blah, blah. And I cannot help but wonder if there might even be a little bit of law of diminishing returns happening here with the audience now. I mean, hell, look, Endgame opened with $357 million. Spider-Man Far From Home has opened to less than half of that. And obviously, Spider-Man is not Endgame. They're different. I get that, but it's worth putting out there. I cannot help but wonder if there's going to be a little bit of an Endgame hangover, both leading up to Endgame, which we saw previous to other films, and coming out of Endgame. I just got to wonder if the entire comic book movie industry at this point needs to start evaluating how it can't, because I feel like, Rob, it can't just be business as normal. I feel like you can't hit that crescendo with an Endgame and then just think, well, let's just keep doing the way we've been doing things, because I think now the expectations of the audience have maybe changed. Maybe we're starting to see, I've never wanted to say this, comic book fatigue? I've always yelled at people that have said that over the past 10 years, but I don't know, man, 3 films in 6 months. And in one of them, the audiences and the critics loved. And one of them doesn't even make $22 million in the box office. I don't know. I think at least it's concerning. I'm not hitting the panic button. I'm not saying the sky is falling. I'm not saying any of that. Don't misquote me. I'm just saying I think there's at least a little bit of a concern for a Walter Hamada or a Kevin Feige to raise their eyebrow and go, like, maybe we need to look at this. I don't know. But you don't really think there's anything here. You think this is just, it's just coincidence. We've had these 3 films. Each one of them had their individual issues, and we shouldn't worry about it too much. Look how successful Spider-Man is, and let's see where we go. Is that kind of...
Yeah, I mean, look, every genre, whether it's a romantic comedy, whether it's a rom-com, whether it's a body R-rated adult comedy, whether it's a science fiction movie, whether it's a cop thriller, whatever genre you're working in, the film has to have great characters and a great story. And what I think these comic book movies did, especially Hellboy, they let down the Hellboy audience. There was people primed to go see these movies, but they don't go just because we have so much great genre entertainment. I mean, look at a movie like The Last Airbender. That has a huge, enormous audience out there. One of the great animated, most celebrated animated series. It had a fan base. Did they run out and see that film?
We did, and then we walked out of it.
That's right. And it didn't make money.
It's terrible.
It let people down. And you've got to build the people aren't what people have to understand is the genre fandom, science fiction, fantasy, horror, animation. We are the most discerning of fans. We don't just watch crap. Now, someone will always bring up the Transformers movies. The Transformers cartoons were never great examples of they were toy. They were commercials. And those movies, as much as I defend one, and I liked the Battle of Chicago and Dark Side of the Moon, 3, 4, and 5, or 2 and 4 and 5 were pretty awful. However, even I like giant robot fighting porn, and that's the best giant robot fighting porn money can buy. Even I couldn't get through the 5th movie. But I would say that's a franchise that ultimately, if you want to watch robots in disguise fighting, you're going to get something out of it. Something out of it, as god-awful as they might be. But that's the one franchise I would say that about.
I go back to what you said before, because I agree with what you said before. Robot porn's great. If you don't have a great movie with great story, it's irrelevant. And to me, great action without great story is just visual noise.
Well, that's what the fifth Transformers movie proved, that the audience has tolerance.
Yeah, we have a certain level.
Genre fans are the most discerning of all, and when people start realizing this, we'll get better movies. They make the same mistakes over and over and over again. Oh, the fans will turn up anyway.
The problem,
yeah, we will, but then we will walk out.
The problem is, like, your assertion about that because it wasn't good. People didn't even give it a chance to find out if it was good. It's one thing if Hellboy made $75 million opening weekend and then it dropped down to $5 million on its second weekend. Nobody went to even see it. Like Hellboy made $12 million on its opening weekend. So it's not like it's a situation where the audience went out, realized it was a bad film, and then they all gave up on it, and then it dried out. They didn't even go to check it out. And that's concern. That's the part that worries me. You see, I'm with you if it's like, again, if we saw like a 75% drop from week 1 to week 2, but it had a fair, but this is a situation here where nobody even went to go see it to find out if it was good or bad. And that's the thing that to me is a little bit, it's just a little bit eyebrow raising. So again, it might be much ado about nothing. That's why I'm not panicking about it. I just think it's a little bit concerning. But again, Spider-Man's out right now, which we're going to talk about here in a second. That's there too. But Kris, let me ask you this. Do you think you're hearing all this? You're hearing everything I'm saying, you're hearing everything Rob's saying. You're seeing these 3 films come out in the first half of a year. Do you think there's something here for the industry to be at least a little bit concerned about?
I do think there is a quality over quantity issue that we have to focus on. I don't think it's necessarily fatigue. It's just we have stepped up our game. We do expect more of these films. So you can't just bank on it being part of some comic franchise. You have to make a good movie too. I've been waiting my whole life for these movies. I carried all of my X-Men cards in a binder around with me. You know, I have always wanted to see these things on the big screen and done well. So the fact that other people now expect them to be well done too, not just us comic book geeks who are like, well, actually in the Dark Phoenix saga, it happened like this. Like, we all want a good film now because we know they can be good. And you know, on my way in here today, I was listening to David Tennant does a podcast with, and his guest was Jennifer Garner. And she was talking about, you know, comic book movies with him. And she said this great line of, oh, yeah, I did comic book movies before they took the time to make them good. And it just really stuck with me. But
Let me reiterate how much I love Jennifer Garner. Can I just throw that out there?
I was thinking about, I was like, oh, both of our crushes are talking to each other right now. How sweet. But I really loved that line, though, because when we're talking about this, it reminds me, you know, the genre, while it wasn't at its peak then, those kind of stinkers from the early oddies didn't ruin or derail the genre. It just made them go, maybe we should put some more time and thought into this. And that should always be what you're doing when you're making a movie.
And again, my one concern about that is Shazam was good.
Shazam was
and
so
the
good.
Critics loved it.
Shazam kids.
Still not as good as it could have. At least made the money. At least it was profitable. But anyway, guys, the big question here is, you've heard a lot of different points of view on here. The question is, the important thing here is, what is your point of view on this? Do you think that, hey, listen, Campea, this is a blip on the radar, not to worry, coincidence that they all happened here, this is nothing? Or do you think more like me in the sense that, no, I think it's a little bit more than a blip, I think there might be something we should keep our eye on? Or do you think more extremes like, nope, this is the sign, this is it, comic book movie fatigue is here, the genre is about to go in decline, blah, blah, blah? Let me know what you guys think. Jump down in the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right, with that down and out of the way, let's move on to our final main topic today. Kris, what is our final main topic today?
For our final topic, we're hearing from Suvesh M. Hi, John. I saw that at the end of the first weekend, Spider-Man Far From Home has made $185 million and $580 worldwide, which is awesome. However, it only managed to make $93 million on its official opening weekend, where Homecoming made $117 million. Is this a bad sign for Far From Home in the long run? Thank you. And John, we were talking about these numbers last week, actually. So do you think this is a bad sign? Do you think this is okay? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, again, we saw a lot of people, and we predicted this last week. We knew this was going to happen. We tried to tell people, don't worry. We're seeing people worrying, wait a minute. Because officially speaking, the opening weekend box office for Spider-Man Homecoming is $93 million. However, as we tried to warn everybody before, remember though, this movie's opening on a Tuesday. That opening weekend only reflects the late Thursday to Sunday numbers. It doesn't reflect the real first couple of days of the film. And so it's going to be much more. And they were predicting, Rob, that this movie, Spider-Man Far From Home, could hit as high as $180 million by the end of its first weekend, understanding that it opened early. It exceeded even that. And it's gone 185 million domestic, and now by the end of its first week, it has peaked over $500 million. Over $500 million in its first week, which is, of course, insane. Now, just for the sake of it, let's look at the actual box office numbers from this weekend. So, officially speaking, the opening weekend box office number for Spider-Man Far From Home is 93.6. Again, it's obviously... that is not a poor indicator whatsoever because it had its opening days earlier in the week. So that's going to throw these numbers off, but it goes down on the record books. Its official opening weekend is 93.6 million, but really that's nothing we should really look. There's got to be a big asterisk there. All right. Number 2, Toy Story 4 comes in at 34.3 million, still hanging in there. Yesterday takes a small drop actually and hangs in there with 10.7 million. Annabelle Comes Home makes another 9.7. And get this, guys, Aladdin still in the top 5 in its 7th weekend. In its 7th weekend, still in the top 5, makes another 7.6. And guess what? We had a little bit of a story about this last week when it climbed over the $800 million mark. It has now climbed over the $900 million mark. Aladdin is now sitting at, I believe, $921 million. I don't believe, it doesn't have the gas tank to get to $1 billion. I don't believe at this point. There's just, it's only made 7.6 now. It's got like almost 80 million more to go. Not going to hit $1 billion, but oh my God, who saw this coming? Who saw 900 million plus coming for Aladdin? But anyway, we're really here to talk about Spider-Man at this point, but still, that's remarkable. Rob, you're looking at these numbers for Spider-Man Far From Home. 185 million domestic by the end of its first week. Over $500 million worldwide at the end of its first week. There is no reality here, right? That you can look at this as anything, not just a disappointment, not just did well, but there's just no other way to look at this in any sense other than a massive success, is there?
Massive success, and it's been reported that Far From Home was actually made for less than they made Homecoming for. So it's a movie that didn't cost as much as the first Spider-Man, which means it doesn't have to earn as much money to be a hit. I think that, I don't care what universe you're in, this is a smash. This is a huge victory for everybody involved. And, I look at that chart that you just had up. You've got Far From Home, you've got Toy Story, and Far From Home's Sony, so it's not really Disney. And you've got Aladdin, but it's still tied to the MCU. I mean, I don't know if you all are Disney shareholders. I'm not a Disney shareholder, but all I want to do is be a Disney shareholder now because, my God, we were talking at the early part of the year, what was going to be, could they have $5 billion grossers this year? Well, I mean, with Aladdin and there's that movie coming out, John. What are you seeing tomorrow night?
Something about a kitty cat.
Yeah, that movie, not that anyone's going to run out and see that film, but I mean, literally, are they going to start pumping water into the plumbing at Disney dollars instead of water? Because they're making so much money. Has any studio made this much money in the history of Hollywood?
No.
It's unbelievable.
And literally, the answer to that question is no. Disney's going to have a record-setting year. I mean, look, in the $1 billion club, they already have. They've got Captain Marvel. They've got Endgame. I mean, I'm saying it's not going to get there, but Aladdin's got a shot. And who thought?
And you know what? Even if it falls a little short, $900+ million. I mean, come on.
Again, I saw that for a second time last week. Ann and I were at Universal City Walk. Had some time to kill. Stuck our nose in to watch it again. You know what? I've gone from really appreciating this movie to loving it. I love this movie. Did so well. Spider-Man's going to be $1 billion. Lion King's going to be $1 billion. Toy Story may get to $1 billion. Then we got this Star Wars movie coming. Then we got like Maleficent's coming. And Maleficent's not going to be $1 billion film, but it's going to make a lot of money. It is crazy what they're doing here. But again, with Spider-Man, look, I said all along, Spider-Man Far From Home is going to join the $1 billion club because Spider-Man Homecoming was beloved and it made a whole ton of money. It's coming out of Endgame. They've increased Spider-Man's profile. It's going to be big. Now you add on top of all that reasoning the fact that it's just a really good movie. It's just a really good movie with some great laughs, some great surprises, some twists and turns. We did our Spider-Man Far From Home spoiler discussion this weekend if you guys want to go check that out. But yeah, again, I don't think that unless there's going to be, look, and there's going to be some people out there, Rob. There are going to be some people out there right now that are going, huh? Just as I brought up allegorically a little bit earlier. Well, I mean, the last Marvel movie that came out made $357 million opening weekend. This one's taken a bigger than 50% drop. That tells us people didn't really like Endgame, or that Spider-Man's a bit of a failure. It should have. Come on, why didn't it? And I've seen people asking, well, wait, why didn't it make $200 million opening weekend? Because that hardly ever happens. There's no way to look at this other than a supreme success. This is huge, and I just don't know where they go from here. The question now isn't, Rob, does it hit $1 billion? I think that's a foregone conclusion at this point. The question is, how high over $1 billion does it go? Can it catch, say, another MCU film like a Black Panther, which pulled in around 1.3? Do you think it can get that high? Or a little bit less, a little bit more? Where do you see it falling at this point?
Well, I really enjoyed this film. I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to enjoy it, and I really thought about it, and I've actually had some pretty interesting discussions with people about it. I think it's probably going to do more than Captain Marvel, but less than Black Panther. I'd go 1.2.
Which is a great neighborhood to live in.
It's just an unbelievable number, which, by the way, I believe that actually, so this is the 23rd MCU movie. I think with that kind of a number, it brings the average now that all MCU movies would have grossed $1 billion.
I think it's still just shy.
On the average,
I think it's still just shy.
Just shy?
Just shy. I think I saw a number, and you guys online, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I saw a number that Spider-Man could push the average over $1 billion per film. I think if it got to like 1.6. But we're getting close. We're getting close.
That is just insanity to know that 23 movies would average out to $1 billion each. This is so unprecedented in Hollywood. You can't even talk about how unprecedented it is because it's never happened even in anyone's wildest imaginings.
No,
it's insanity.
It is crazy. And guys, really the ultimate question here is, what do you think about these numbers? Do you think there's a way to look at this negatively at all? Do you see it the way we see it as nothing but positive across the board? What do you think the potential limit is here for a Spider-Man Far From Home? Could it challenge Black Panther for that like $1.3 billion era? Could it blow by that? Maybe coming a little bit short. What do you guys think? We want to know your thoughts. Jump down in the comment section below and let us know what you think. All right, guys, with all that stuff down and out of the way, it's that type of time of the show now for us to go and take your live questions. You guys have been firing in a bunch of live questions, but before we do, there are a bunch of other things going on in the world of movie news that we don't have time to make main topics here, but we want to make sure if you're watching our show, you get caught up to date. So right now, fact checker Jonathan proudly presents to you today's installment of the Movie News Feed. Check it out.
First up, long-suffering MoviePass is dead in the water through the heat of summer to deal with technical issues. The theater subscription service hit pause starting July 4th and told users it expects to be shut down for several weeks. From CinemaBlend, MoviePass has been responding to subscribers' tweets with the same statement to explain the lack of service. According to MoviePass, subscribers will not be charged during the shutdown, and they will automatically be credited for the number of affected days once the service continues. MoviePass is also not accepting new subscribers during the shutdown. MoviePass's temporary shutdown announcement also mentioned using the time to recapitalize in order to facilitate a seamless transition and improve subscriber experience once the service continues. That recapitalization sounds like a hint to more money problems. Next up, adapted from the comic series of the same name, 1994's The Mask was a huge success, and along with Ace Ventura and Dumb and Dumber, helped to make a comedy superstar out of Jim Carrey. From JoeBlow.com, Mike Richardson, one of the creators behind the comic book character, recently spoke about the possibility of the franchise making a return to the big screen. There's nothing official, but Richardson already has a comedian in mind to take on the title role for what could be a female-led reboot. Richardson said the following: "I'd like to see a really good physical comedian in the role. I have one in mind, but I'm not going to say her name. We have to do a lot of convincing for this particular actor, but we'll see. You never know what's coming in the future. We have some ideas." Next up, Warner Media cable network Adult Swim has set the linear television premiere date for mecha anime series Genlock. From Variety, the show from Warner Media's Rooster Teeth will debut on Adult Swim's anime block Toonami on Saturday, August 3rd. Starring Michael B. Jordan, Genlock is set 50 years in the future, where an oppressive authoritarian force threatens to conquer the world. A daring team is recruited to pilot a new form of weaponized neuroscience that powers devastating mecha, but they must be willing to sacrifice everything to save the world. In addition to Jordan, the show features the voices of actors Dakota Fanning, Maisie Williams, Asia Kate Dillon, and David Tennant. Next up, Cameron Boyce, known for his roles in the Disney Channel franchise Descendants and the TV series Jessie, has died. He was 20. From Deadline, Boyce's death was due to an ongoing medical condition his family confirmed in a statement to ABC News. A spokesperson for the family said the following: "It is with a profoundly heavy heart that we report with this morning we lost Cameron. He passed away in his sleep due to a seizure which was a result of an ongoing medical condition for which he was being treated. The world is now undoubtedly without one of the brightest lights, but his spirit will live on through the kindness and compassion of all who knew and loved him." Boyce was best known for his leading role as Carlos in Disney's Descendants franchise, and wrap production on Descendants 3, which is set to premiere in August. He was also set to appear as a series regular opposite Kathryn Hahn in HBO's Mrs. Fletcher, and was due to appear in the American Satan TV spin-off Paradise City, about rock stars navigating the music industry. He also was set for a starring role in the indie film Runt. Boyce's breakout role came as one of the leads, Luke Ross, in Disney Channel's Jessie, on which he starred for 4 seasons. And finally, you may have known that Luke Skywalker actor Mark Hamill played an additional role in The Last Jedi, but the extent of that performance was more detailed than many previously thought. From Slash Film, in The Last Jedi, Hamill not only turned in a soulful, complex performance as a disillusioned Luke Skywalker, but the actor also played a small character called Dobusque, a tiny alien gambler who could be seen trying to drunkenly insert coins into BB-8 during the film's trip to Canto Bight. Hamill, of course, is a legendary voiceover performer whose work includes voicing the Joker in Batman the Animated Series and Chucky in this year's Child's Play, among many others. But it turns out Hamill did more than just spend a few minutes in a recording booth to help bring Dobusque to life. He said the following in a tweet: "It is commonly and mistakenly reported that I only did the voice of Dobusque, but I filmed the scene in a full motion capture suit with a giant-sized medicine ball to make me the same size as BB-8. I didn't expect to be credited, assuming it would be another unbilled Easter egg." And that will do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed.
And now you are all caught up to date, and a special thanks to fact checker Jonathan for putting that together for us. All right, with all that down now, let's move on to the live questions today. We're going to get things started here with Matsif Jada, who writes, LOL, Mulan has a thicker accent than her parents. You know what? Can I put this out there? I do not know why they bother putting accents in any of these movies, because they're not supposed to be speaking English with their native accent. Whether it's a movie that takes place in an Asian country, Russia, Jamaica, or Jamaica is the wrong example of that, Italy, whatever, they wouldn't be speaking English with an accent. They would be speaking their native language is what they would be speaking. So why bother having them have their accents in the first place? But you're not wrong. She did have a bit of a stronger accent. Matson follows up, Mulan actress had a similar role in Forbidden Kingdom. I don't remember her in Forbidden Kingdom. And I like Forbidden Kingdom. I gotta go back and check that out again. Thanks for the heads up on that, Matsiv. Jacob Jansen sends in a super chat. Thank you, Jacob. All right, Alvin Elmore writes, serious cry time in that Mulan trailer. I never seen so many people emotional over a trailer. Mushu would not fit in this film. They made the right decision. I wanted Mulan to be serious, not campy. And you know what? I think you're onto something there, Alvin. They had a choice that they needed to make. Did they want to go the way that, Rob had been discussing and talking about, of more of a prestige kind of way? Did they want to go something where it was going to be more serious and epic in that nature? Or did you want to go for the animated film feel? They clearly wanted to go with one feel, and if you do, I just don't think Mushu works, and maybe not even the musical numbers. So I think you're onto something there. Like, Rob, do you think there's any way, though, they could have maintained a prestige sort of feel while working in those animated elements, or was it just a choice?
No, but I think that you could work in, obviously there's ways to work in a dragon into Chinese themed material. There's a number of ways you could do it. I don't think necessarily a talking dragon, the way it's portrayed in the animated film, would be the way to go. But there could be a vision. She might have some kind of a dream sequence where a dragon-esque character speaks to her somehow, or I don't know, but you could do it in such a way that it keeps the prestige feel of the film.
What did you think, Kris? Do you think there's a way they could have put in more animated elements?
I mean, for sure. What's confusing to me is on IMDb, there is a voice credit for a cricket. So do we get Cricket in this film, but not Mushu?
Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah.
Jiminy Cricket makes an appearance. Here it goes. When you wish
Mulan has
upon
a
star.
conscience. Well, and I don't know if then her grandma gives her a lucky cricket before she sees the matchmaker, like in the animated one. So maybe there are elements that we haven't seen so far. But I think Rob's point about this being a prestige move is a really smart point that I wasn't even thinking about watching this. But I think if they want to weave that more animation in and tie in some of the other elements from the original 90s film, there's definitely room to do it. I mean, it's an epic tale. It's a bit of Chinese like legend, you know? So there's definitely room to add in dream sequences, to add in a dragon, to add in a spiritual kind of journey, kind of like what we saw in Black Panther. They could go on a spiritual journey of some kind so that they see their ancestors and see those different deities.
Well, there's going to be a phoenix. I know that. I know there's going to be a phoenix. All right. Next up, Bruce Gordon writes, so what's going to ruin someone's childhood this week? Yep. It always seems like somebody's upset about something in their childhood ruining. That's a sad yet accurate observation there, Bruce. All right. Alvin Elmore follows up and writes, I agree that ethnicity should only matter if it's essential to the character. But what about a character with an iconic look? Kryptonians don't exist, but a Pakistani Clarke Kent would be jarring. I agree that a Pakistani Superman would be jarring at first. We're always jarred by something different at first. When, what was the name of the actress who played Jodie Foster? When Jodie Foster did not come back to play Clarice in the second Hannibal movie, that was jarring at first. When the guy who played Dumbledore passed away and we got a new Dumbledore, that was jarring at first. When Michael Clarke Duncan played Kingpin in Daredevil, that to me was jarring at first. And then I just bought into it and I loved him as Kingpin after that.
Yep.
We're always going to be a little bit jarred by something that we're not used to or not expecting. So, I do completely agree with that, Elvin, that look, as if it's not an important part of who and what the character is, then the race and gender doesn't matter. Could there be a jarring factor for changing it up? Absolutely. But then we get past it and we move on and then we accept it and we're good to go and we're fine. So I still don't see it as that big of a deal. I really don't. Jarring at first, yeah, but hey, maybe something jarring is a pretty good effect and maybe it's something that we need. I don't know, Rob, how would you say that? How big of an effect can that initial jarring be and can it distill an entire movie?
Again, you know what? If we have preconceived notions for anybody, I remember when Daniel Craig was cast as Bond. They're like, but he's got blue eyes and he doesn't have black hair, and people were complaining. Heath Ledger doesn't look like the Joker. How can he play the Joker? I mean, we've seen this over and over and over again. These are actors. They're playing parts. They're cast by the director and by the studio for a reason. And they've seen something. Certainly people saw something in Heath Ledger we had yet to see. And when we saw it, it was pretty apparent that, wow, this isn't Jack Nicholson. This is a whole new, different deal. And would anybody want to live in a world without Heath Ledger's Joker now? If somebody cast a Pakistani immigrant or a native Pakistani person who spoke with a heavy accent, what are they speaking in Pakistan? Hindi? What are they speaking in Pakistan? I don't know. Pashtun? I don't know. But if you had an actor who was awesome in the role of Superman that just happened to be Pakistani, like you said, John, it would be something that we would notice for like the first 10 minutes. But if he was great in the role, you'd be like, oh, that dude's Superman. I mean, it just give it time. Everything changes. We pillory these things before we've seen them. Wait before we see it, and then if it's terrible, then go after it.
Wolverine will never work with an actor who's over 5'5". Will never work, right?
Wolverine's a small dude.
Yeah.
He's 5 foot tall.
Everybody meets
you have the
Hugh Jackman.
fastball special. Colossus throws him.
Yeah, so I think, look, do I think there are exceptions to this? Absolutely, there are exceptions to everything. I do, and I do believe there is a point when the color of the character does cross-section with the narrative that they're trying to tell, and I believe there are those situations. I just believe there aren't as many of those situations as a lot of people seem to believe. But
one thing I will say about this, we and filmmakers need to understand, if you were going to say suddenly turn James Bond into Idris Elba, which isn't a bad idea, Audience members, however, would be wondering, okay, there is a thing with an audience where you have to have them and explain to them, allow them to make the leap. If you're going to make that kind of a decision, you've got to make it, there's got to be a reason apparent in what you've done. Otherwise, the audience is going to be sort of bewildered by it, I think. So it's not something I think filmmakers know this. So they're not making these wholesale changes because they're just doing it because the audience or the studio said, we must have diversity. No, filmmakers and studios are casting people in these central roles because they believe they're the best people for those roles. They've seen something we have yet to see. So whether it's Ariel, we have upcoming, or whether it was Heath Ledger, somebody saw something we didn't get to see until we went to the multiplex. And I would give people the benefit of the doubt.
Here's the thing. Well, I don't always give filmmakers the benefit of the doubt because we've seen some really bad casting before. But like, if you were now to come, if someone were to come say to me in light of this conversation, so John, you're saying you could seal Kumail Nanjiani as Superman? Is that what you're saying? No, I couldn't see Kumail Nanjiani as Superman. But not because of his race, but because, I mean, look at Kumail Nanjiani. I don't see him as Superman.
You can't look at the Stuber trailer and think, oh, that guy's
That guy should be Superman.
But I'll tell you this. And I know it's not the exact ethnicity. Forgive me. I'm geographically impaired. Forgive me. I admit my ignorance here. But I'll tell you what else. There's a WWE wrestler by the name of Jinder Mahal who is like one of the ultimate physical specimens on the planet. And you get that guy and you tell me this is Superman. I'm just like, that's the Man of Steel. Yep. And if you don't know what Jinder Mahal looks like, just go look up Jinder Mahal. I'd be totally good with it. And again, it all depends how it plays in the character. But yeah, there are exceptions. Absolutely. I'm not pretending that there isn't. There are. But I just don't think there, again, I just don't think there are as many as some people like to make that out to be. JB Bonifacio writes, and thereupon a rainbow is the answer to a never-ending story. John, my head says Chernobyl, but my heart belongs to Stranger Things. Hey, look, I thought Stranger Things Season 3 was great. I think it's safe to say all of us enjoyed Stranger Things Season 3. It's really good. And for you, JB, if Stranger Things is like your ball of wax, that's awesome. To me, though, as much as I adored it, it's no Chernobyl. It's no Chernobyl. But I mean, Kris, it was a different kind of show. This is an apples to oranges like kind of evaluation. But I don't think saying that demerits at all how much we liked Stranger Things 3. Which out of the two, if you had to pick one to win the Emmy for Best Series this year, Stranger Things 3 or Chernobyl, which one would you give the award to?
You're asking me?
No, I'm asking Kris.
Oh, I would go Chernobyl. I have a lot more fun watching Stranger Things. I shouldn't have fun watching Chernobyl. Let's be very clear about that. But, I mean, I think you're very right, and they're very different shows, you know? What I really want to win all of the Emmys is Good Omens, though, which, I mean, that's what I'm rooting for, even though I love Stranger Things, even though Chernobyl's amazing. And if you want to watch a show, watch that show, even if you think it should, you should watch something that has more acclaim or more historical value. If we all liked the same thing, life would be so boring. Watch whatever you want.
Rob, you saw Stranger Things 3. Who do you give the Emmy to?
Chernobyl, all day and twice on Sunday. But that doesn't mean that Stranger Things wasn't a hugely enjoyable show.
It was.
Yeah,
you know,
so
fun.
And like you'd pointed out, we talked about the fact that, well, ultimately, it's pretty goofy that the Russians have a base there. But you know,
still wearing their Russian uniforms in their secret base in America.
But it was like,
whatever.
I'm like, I could make that leap. You know, they bribed the mayor. They didn't know. The mayor's like, okay, it's a Russian construction company that's building this new mall. I'll go with it. I didn't know they're building a super secret base to open up the upside down.
Open up the gate for the upside down. Yeah.
Should we not be spoiling Stranger Things?
Yeah, we probably.
Anyway,
spoiled
but you know what? There's this thing called the upside down. It's a Stranger
What?
Things thing. I know.
Since
But
when?
I mean, and we know that there's. But anyway, it was goofy fun right out of the '80s. You know, I expected Arnold Schwarzenegger to show up, and in a way, he kind of did. They kind of had Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well,
in Stranger Things
look,
3.
we accidentally slipped something. Let's not start giving details away.
Well, no, but I mean, it was that the '80s feel.
Yeah.
and I love that. But it's not an Emmy award winning show for best drama.
Well, yeah, and that, again, to me, that takes nothing away from just how much fun it was, and very enjoyable. I think it might even be my favorite season. It just might be. All right. Dobie Dad writes, I like Rob Zombie's movies. Please help. Yeah, you know what? I like Rob Zombie. I've had a chance to meet Rob Zombie. I'm actually a fan of Rob Zombie's music. I am not a fan of his filmmaking. I wish I could say I was. I can't really even think of one of his that I didn't actively dislike. I'm not a fan, but hey, dude, if you're a fan, then be a fan and don't be apologetic about it. If his movies work for you, then his movies work for you, and there's nothing wrong with that in the world. And you're not alone. I know there are other people who appreciate Rob Zombie's filmmaking as well. Lee Mallinson writes, my girlfriend is ginger and quite self-conscious. With Annie and Ariel being recast in recent years, she doesn't feel she has representation or a voice. Do you have sympathy, or does she just need to accept it? Well, there's two answers to that. One, there's the typical kind of ignorant answer because I'm not in her shoes, so I can't relate. So I say, nah, no sympathy. Get over it. But I get a little bit. But look, redheads make up about 1.5% of the population in the world. Last I checked, it was about 1.5% of the population. And some of the greatest redheads out there, there's some of the greatest people out there. Jessica Chastain is a redhead. I mean, we had an Ariel made a redhead in the animated thing, even though she's not a redhead in the classic mythology. They've had, I mean, they're a prominent redhead. Ed Sheeran right now is the world's most famous ginger and all that kind of stuff. But they do, but again, we're not talking about somebody's race. We're not talking about somebody's culture. We're not talking about somebody's lifestyle. We're talking about the color of hair. Hair? I feel like Allen Iverson. Hair color? We're talking about hair color? But again, I'm speaking that from a position that I can't relate because I'm not a ginger. Maybe if I was, I would feel differently. So I admit that. I admit that right up front. But my initial reaction is, hair color? I don't know. So I don't know that people with a certain hair color need a voice. But again, that's from a position of ignorance. So who knows? All right. Ivesio Garcia writes, just saw Aladdin, needs some fix, but I enjoyed it. Yeah, I don't think Aladdin was perfect. I don't. But oh my God, it was charming. And I thought the music was wonderful. Naomi Scott is, listen, if for no other reason, if you were looking for an excuse to maybe be excited about the new Charlie's Angels movie, the one thing I would throw out there is Naomi Scott, because I'm dying to see what she does next, even if it's Charlie's Angels with a, let's call it at best, mediocre trailer. Kevin Laniel writes, I am now your 582nd Patreon. Love your show. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for becoming a Patreon supporter. Everybody here involved with our show, thanks you for that, man, and we look forward to having you around. All right, Harris writes, did you see Aquarius' tweet about Man of Steel 2 and Green Lantern Corps? I heard there was something about...
Oh, I did.
That he had talked with somebody about Man of Steel, but I don't know what tweets are talking about. Rob, what's this about?
He talked about developing Green Lantern Corps and Man of Steel 2 concurrently, so they had crossover together.
Oh, okay.
And it sounded like it was going to be the most epic thing ever. And apparently he wanted to lean heavily into the mythology of both the Green Lantern Corps and Superman, the Kryptonians, and they told him no. And I think to myself, who told him no? Who told Chris McQuarrie, an Academy Award-winning screenwriter who wanted to combine the Green Lantern Corps and Man of Steel into two separate movies, but crossover? Who told you no?
Well, maybe it wasn't consistent with where they were going overall with the DCU.
Yeah, what do they know?
But then remember, it was a while. It was
a while ago.
And then McQuarrie, in recent, you remember, it was a number of months ago. He came out and said, "Oh, I'm never doing a comic book movie."
Yeah,
because he saw the way fandom is currently, and he said,
he's going to go make new Mission Impossible movies concurrently back to back. He's winning.
Yeah,
Chris McQuarrie's winning.
Would you be at all?
We're losing,
Chris, in like a Superman Green Lantern crossover kind
Hell
of idea?
Yes. And I mean, we've seen that those kind of movies can work if they've been done well.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really, really cool because the Green Lantern Corps mythology is so interesting. All the different planets that come into play, all the different alien species that come into play. So you can naturally include Kryptonian lore into that. So that makes sense as a way for them to connect too. I think that'd be super cool.
You know what? Total side note here, guys. I'm taking us down a rabbit trail.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
The way you just said something, Kris. Mm-hmm. I know you do voice acting. Mm-hmm. I have to ask you this, because your voice just sounded exactly like my all-time favorite internet video ever, possibly of all time, was a number of years ago. It was a video made up of World of Warcraft characters done to a song called The Internet is for Porn.
From Avenue Q.
Yes, and you sound just like I gotta ask, was that you?
Oh, no, that's not me.
Okay.
I wish that was me.
But oh my God, it's sad.
That'd be great.
That sounded just like you.
I'm still getting over my cold, so every now and then I drop down into like pubescent boy kind of voices, so.
She just can't, she couldn't reveal that if it was her anyway, John.
Well, come on, it was a
Maybe
long time
it
ago.
is.
Maybe it is. All right, let's try this here. Kevin Laniel writes, seeing Aaron made me rewatch Spartacus. That's a good reason to rewatch Spartacus. The show is so good, but is it just me or were they setting up a Caesar spinoff show? Would have loved it. Oh, I totally felt like they were setting up a Caesar spinoff show. It completely felt like that. Now, for those who didn't see the show, you don't know what we're talking about, but they introduced the character of Caesar as they're getting into the later eras of Spartacus, and it completely did. So I don't know if that was the plan, and then they axed that plan, but I'll tell you what, man, you're not alone, Kevin. I totally felt like that what they were doing, and I would have been all for it. They decided not to go in that direction, though. I'm Upset writes, would you be down for White Chicks 2? I'm not. It's not for me. I'm not interested in it. But I know there are people like my wife Ann loves the original White Chicks. So I know there are going to be people who are down for it. Let's just say it wouldn't be for me personally. Suthius writes, hey guys, my favorite comment I've seen this weekend. People don't believe in science about the environment, but they believe in science about mermaids.
That's amazing. Oh.
They won't believe in the science about the environment, but they totally believe in any scientific discussions they try to have about mermaids.
Well, when God made a mermaid, he made her white.
Didn't you know? I put up a tweet last night on my personal Twitter, and I don't know what brought this. I saw something and brought it to my mind, but I said, I can't wait to see how people freak out when they realize that Melissa McCarthy isn't purple. So anyway, they don't believe in science about mermaid or about environment, but they believe in science about mermaids. That's great, Suthius. All right. Matthew Grant writes, third time's a charm, Rob, the Nebula hot toy.
I am very, very excited. And yes, of course I pre-ordered that.
Of course you did.
There wasn't even an issue. By the way, the real thing is that the Stan Lee hot toy figure from Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Yes.
That went up for pre-sale last week. Thank you for people telling me. Yes, sir, I did pre-order that.
And that looked pretty great.
It's pretty great.
In that outfit, that does look pretty great.
With those sunglasses.
I'm telling you what, I've never pre-ordered a hot toy before. I am considering pre-ordering that one.
That is going to sell out because it is
Probably
a toy.
will.
It's a convention exclusive.
All right. Let's see here. Doug Harris writes, no interest in Lion King / Aladdin. Woo-hoo. Okay. Mulan, can't wait. You know, I was interested in Mulan. Now I'm really excited about that. Trailer really did a lot for me as well, Doug. Suthius writes, finally watched Dunkirk. I understand what Nolan was going for with his story, this narrative, but I was underwhelmed. I still enjoyed it though. I'm going to tell you what, I was kind of floored by the movie. The way Nolan took a very different approach than traditional narrative storytelling in this one, and he kind of let the event, the context itself became the main narrative of the movie. It didn't rely so much as individual characters or individual character stories, but it was the context itself. And it's been a while since I've seen a movie done that way. And on that level, it blew me away. But I can tell you what, Suthius, you're not alone. There were a number, because it is so untraditional storytelling, there were a number of people, you're not alone, who was like, it doesn't quite work for me on that level. I can appreciate it for what it was. Didn't work for me on that level. Rob, what did you think of Dunkirk?
I really liked Dunkirk a lot. I mean, it's obviously it's not much of a part of our own history, but I really enjoyed his approach. And again, I'm always talking about verisimilitude and realism. But if you want to have a fun time at the movies, get The Darkest Hour. Because so watch the first half of The Darkest Hour
and then watch Dunkirk
and then go back to The Darkest Hour.
Because it feels like they're shared cinematic universe.
Yeah, they totally are. You have to go for The Darkest Hour, Dunkirk double bill. But did Dunkirk have like the Apocalypse Now attack on the village with the helicopters blazing Wagner? No. It doesn't have that, but it's so I understand people are there's nothing to be blown away by like some big epic scene, but that movie I was so clenched watching it with the way the sound design and like even though I kind of knew what was going to happen, it was so tense for me, and I really thought what he did was amazing from a filmmaking perspective. It was,
Chris, did you have a chance to watch Dunkirk?
I did, and I knew nothing about that bit of
event.
history. So I was very, very riveted by it. And I liked that form of storytelling because while I like things like Band of Brothers, where it's very character-driven, in addition to the history, this was really, really great to just get information and see what happened and see how it affected people. And I thought it was so, so very well done.
I felt for the first time like I was dwelling in the events itself.
Yes.
And that's where he just brought you in. You were dwelling in it.
You feel so present in it.
Yeah.
But hey, again, so I can get why it's not for everybody though. It is a little bit jarring. It's a different types of storytelling, certainly different from anything we've seen from Nolan before. So I get it. Matthew Grant writes, favorite movie vampires and favorite film vampire. And favorite vampire film, I don't know. I'm a little over vampires and stuff like that. It's hard for me to go to anywhere but Lost Boys. I know that's a little cheesy. I love Lost Boys. Kiefer Sutherland in there. I just thought, it wasn't the guy from Bill and Ted. Wasn't he one of the vampires in Lost Boys? Yeah,
Alex Winter.
One of the only other real big things he did. I'm a Lost Boys guy. Chris, what about you? If you had to think about your favorite film vampire or vampire film, what would it be?
The vampires and What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, so
good.
So good.
I do like to run around yelling, "You did this to me," like Kirsten Dunst from Interview with a Vampire. That's just fun. But What We Do in the Shadows, so good. So good.
Rob?
I go for Near Dark and The Hunger, but one of my favorite vampire movies of all time is the Hammer movie, Vampire Circus.
Vampire Circus. Not to be confused with the, the vampires. What was the one with the kid and...
The John C. Reilly one?
Yes, the John
Vampire's Assistant.
The Vampire's Assistant where they're at a circus. Yeah, not to be confused with that one.
No.
Which, by the way, it had its moments. Vampire Assistant.
There's a great Blu-ray of Vampire Circus as well.
Next one up, Suthius writes, I like Maya Hawke in Stranger Things 3. She was the ice cream girl. I hope we see more of her character in season 4. Curious to see where the relationship will go with her and Steve. Well, we know where the relationship is going. Nowhere. That's I'm not going to give anything away, but it is clear that relationship is going nowhere. It is what it is. But Rob, that brings up the question. Is there going to even be a season 4? Netflix seems to be in a 3 and done sort of mentality. I kind of feel that there will be, but Netflix is in a 3 and done sort of mentality. Do you think they're going to pull the plug on this thing?
You know what? That's the biggest question that I have as far as Netflix is concerned, because it seems to have done well. But look, if Stranger Things 3 was the last Stranger Things, I'd be like, nice. That I really loved the way it worked out. But it's going to be really telling to see where they're going to go. And I don't necessarily think there is going to be a season 4. I don't know.
Chris, what do you think? Do you think Netflix is going to greenlight season 4? Or do you think they're going to do like what they've done with a lot of their shows, axe it after 3?
I think there's going to be a season 4. There's a post-credits scene, you guys. You got to stay to the end of episode 8.
But we've seen lots of things have open doors for another season and then they get axed.
I think there's enough here and enough... fan outcry that there will be a season 4 for what happened.
I'll tell you this. I'm a coin toss right now on if Netflix cancels this.
Yeah.
I think it's 50-50. But I am 100% sure there will be a season 4, because if Netflix pulls the plug on this thing, there's going to be 4 or 5 network suitors lining up outside the producer's door saying, we'll take you on our network. I guarantee it. So I'm 100% sure there will be season 4, but I'm only 50-50 that it'll be on Netflix. I'm only 50-50.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. You know what? I'm with you then on that. I didn't think about that.
You think somebody else will pick it up for sure?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to have life. It's going to have life for at least one more season. Where, we'll have to find out. All right. Zentrixu writes, Apocalypse Now. That's what I call behind-the-scenes drama. Oh, my God. There are documentaries. What's the name of the main one, Rob?
Hearts of Darkness.
Hearts of
Filmmakers Apocalypse.
Dude, like, if you guys don't know about all the stuff that went into getting that film made, watch that. But there's other things. There are specials that have been done on it. It is absolutely ludicrous and crazy.
Next month, the final cut comes out in 4K.
Just check it out. If you don't know anything about it, go and check that stuff out.
I need to.
Trond Michelson writes, Aladdin is at 921 million. I think it'll crack 1 billion. I don't think so. It's possible, but it is really slow. Its pace is just too slow. It's got almost 80 million more to go, and it's going into its 8th week. I don't see it making up 80. I just don't see how mathematically it can do that. But hey, I'm not going to say it's impossible, though. Suthius writes, just realized Megatron, Frank Welker, was also Curious George in the animated series, and that Steve Urkel, Jaleel White, was Sonic in the 1990s cartoon. Frank Welker is a true voice actor. He has done so many things that are completely different from each other. Like completely, you could play 12 voices that he's done in a row, and you would never guess it's the same guy doing them. But his thing of Megatron, it was obviously the one that I'm going to remember him most for, 100%. 100%. I mean, it's always going to be Megatron. Timothy Platt writes, It's Stuber Week. Can't wait to watch again, dude. Seriously, last night, Ann and I, a commercial for it came on, and we turned each other like, let's get our tickets for it right now. And I cannot wait to watch this. Been excited for it ever since CinemaCon. Cannot wait. Gabriel Reed writes, wife left me, but at least I can buy as many hot toys as I want now. Congratulations.
Yeah. That's neat.
Is that good news or bad?
I hope, you know what, if your wife left and didn't want you to get hot toys, you're better off without her then, I guess.
There
Or
you
you could
go.
I mean, to look at the upside, you're replacing one hot toy with another.
No, Rob. No.
Just trying to make him feel better. I'm
that's
sorry.
true.
Ultimately, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
That's
Again, I don't know the context. I don't know if that's an improvement in your life or whatever, but hey, way to look on the bright side of things,
Exactly.
dude. Way
Make
to look at the
lemonade
bright
out
side
of
of
that.
things. All right. McDavid Deserves Better writes, I'm thinking about taking my nonna back to her home province of Calabria to visit family. Should I be on high alert for elemental monsters? Yeah, of course, that's a Spider-Man reference there. The funny thing is, David, my nonna is from Calabria. My nonna and nonno came over from there, and my grandfather came over. Nonno came over without his family, so he was separated from my nonna, and they had my dad, and I believe my first set of aunts who were twins, and he had to leave them behind for a while so he could come to Canada, came to Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, got a home, established a life here, and then had to bring them. I mean, it's old school immigration story, my grandfather, but it's just kind of funny that your nonna and my nonna came from the same place.
That's cool.
Zach Bartran writes, just finished all the X-Men films. Days of Future Past and Logan are way ahead as my favorite of the bunch. The rest just missed the mark for me. Well, to me, the entire comic book genre owes itself right now to the first X-Men movie. That they all owe their existence to that movie. X-Men 2, I thought, was the best comic book movie for a little while. But I gotta agree with you. I believe the two best, Zach, gotta agree with you, are Days of Future Past, which I thought would have been forever the best X-Men movie until we saw Logan, which is I thought should have been nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Absolutely. I thought was the best film of that year, to be honest with you, flat out. Jeff Crow writes, bravo, sir. Well-deserved Oscar performance for my question last Monday about Jameson. Yep. I took a lot of pleasure in that. So for those of you who don't know, I had already seen Spider-Man. And I guess it was Jeff who wrote in and said, this was after I saw Spider-Man, but before it opened, right? And said, hey, with Jay Jonah, do you think that Sony might bring him in? Do you think they might bring him in the MCU? And I gave an Oscar-worthy performance. And I was like, it all depends. The decision will be Sony's. I mean, it's a possibility. They might want, Venom with Eddie Brock. They might want to make him go to work at the Daily Bugle and have him there. Maybe Marvel at some point, blah, 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 blah. But I think I fooled a lot of people with that. By the way, can't say anything else. All right, moving on now. Evelyn writes, do you think in 5 to 10 years we could see Disney doing live-action films for their more recent animated films like Frozen, Moana, Brave, etc.? I don't see why not. I mean, Moana would be an expensive film to make, but that could totally be live action. Mm-hmm. Brave, you could totally do Brave.
They could get Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to play himself.
To play Maui. Yeah, and sing You're Welcome Again in live action this time. I don't see why not. The only thing, guys, I could see stopping that is if Frozen 2 is also a $1 billion film. And then in 3 years we get Frozen 3, which is another $1 billion film. The only thing that I could see could disrupt a couple of these ideas is if the animated series goes on being a series and keeps being successful. But other than that, I don't see why not, Kris. Is there any reason not to think that in 10 years we could see some of these newer animated films as live action?
That's such a smart idea. And Disney loves money and is great at making money. They absolutely would do this. The only thing that I think would be problematic later on is for, and this is just because I'm a former Disney park kid, for their face characters in their theme parks. That could get a little dodgy if you start doing the live action stuff. But we haven't seen that so far with what they've done with Beauty and the Beast. No one's yelling that no one looks like Emma Watson. But I think that they'll definitely do remakes. It's not stopping them now. Why would it stop them in the future?
Rob, what do you think?
I agree. I'm sitting here contemplating. I'd love to see a live action Moana. Mm-hmm. I mean, I really would. I'm like, that would be really good.
By the way, I loved Moana.
Yeah.
I love that movie deeply.
I mean, the water effects. I mean, it'd be just cool to see. I'd love to see that.
All right, guys, listen, we have hit 10:30, so it is time for Rob and Kris to check out. They have other things they need to be doing, but don't worry, we're going to keep on going for at least another half hour, taking more questions. Rob, thanks for being here, buddy. Where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, find me on Instagram at RMBurnett, or on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work.
And, of course, Kris Carr has been here, ladies and gentlemen. Kris, where can people follow you?
You can follow me on all social media platforms at actor Kris Carr. And then tonight I am doing a live on Stranger Things at 6 p.m. over on Nerdwire's channel.
Ooh, we'll have fun with that. So good to have you guys. And Rob, we will see you tomorrow. Kris will see you on Wednesday. And now, guys, we're going to continue on taking your questions. So let's keep things rolling here. And we're going to move on now with Willow Yang, who writes, I really like the Mulan trailer. I'm probably in the minority, but I don't think a music number will work for this version of the movie. I agree. Now, the one little asterisk I'll put in there, Willow, is this. We've seen other epic style things that have had musical numbers as well. So it's not like it couldn't work. It could. There's a way in which that could work pretty easily if they wanted to. But at the same time, I like that they're going with the pure mythology on this. I like this approach. So I think they're going to keep going with that way. All right, next up, Sky Amazing Guy writes, so who gets more of the box office return for Far From Home, Sony or Marvel? Technically speaking, Sony gets all the box office return because they are the distributor. But whatever the actual agreement is for the distribution of those funds between Marvel and Sony, we don't know the specific numbers. So I'm going to guess Sony at this point because it is their film to distribute. But again, it all depends on what the particulars are of their deal, that of which we do not know at this point. Kevin Lewis writes, which Star Trek series would you most want to be a crew member of for Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Star Trek Enterprise, or the original? Oh, that's easy. Star Trek Next Generation. I wouldn't want to be out on a space station, so there's that. Voyager, you were caught like so many light years from home, so I wouldn't want that. I think Next Generation, you got all the advantages of modern technology. If I had to pick one, it would be Next Generation. Roman Bryant writes, I rewatched Batman Returns. I forgot how weird and creepy that movie. It is weird and creepy. The Penguin used to give me nightmares. Somebody said recently, Roman, that, if they do a Penguin, you can never live up to Danny DeVito's Penguin. But what I said at the time was, I don't know that you can do Danny DeVito's Penguin. I don't know if you can do Danny DeVito's Penguin again, because that was a very stylized, specific Penguin for that Burton film. And it was effective for Burton's film, but I agree with you, man. It was a nightmare kind of an idea. It was something out of nightmares, which of course is not something that Tim Burton is opposed to, and it works for him. Aiden Foley writes, hey, John and crew, hope you're all doing well. I haven't seen any report of it, but did Brightburn flop? I loved it personally, so I hope it didn't. I believe it absolutely did flop. Let me bring up the final numbers. But I do believe it was very, very cheap to make. So that goes in its favor. You know what? It all depends on how much it made, how much they spent on marketing. Because if they spent, well, I got a feeling they spent more than like 15 million on marketing. They probably spent closer to like 30 on marketing, which means it lost money. So unless it only spent like 10 million on marketing, which I believe they spent more than that, because it only had a production budget of $6 million. It made $31.3 million overall, but if it spent any more than like 15 million on marketing, which I believe they did, then that means it lost money. So yes, it was a flop. I'll be honest with you. You guys know I was really excited about that movie. James Gunn's involvement. I thought it was a great concept. The film overall, I have to admit, despite the fact I'm a huge James Gunn fan, I got to admit the film itself fell kind of flat for me. And it didn't really work. The concept was great. I feel like it didn't execute, but I don't know. Again, unless the marketing was way lower than what I heard, it is a movie that lost money, and ergo, it kind of flopped. Marie Seifring writes, did you hear about the new Lion King themed Build-A-Bear coming out? The two I saw advertised were Pumbaa and Simba as a cub. Thanks. No, I did not see that, as a matter of fact. But I think that sounds fascinating. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing about that. And hey, listen, guys, you guys aren't noticing right now, but I'm having a little bit of a technical issue with my internet connection right now. It looks like something on my server provider. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut today's show a little bit short. I apologize for that. I said I was going to go another 20 or 30 minutes. I apologize, I want, but I'd rather end the show right now on my terms purposefully than having it cut out accidentally, which looks like we might be getting close to doing so. We're going to wrap this up now. Hey guys, listen, for all of those of you who still have questions outstanding, Vault to the Future, Kevin Lewis, all the way down, don't worry, I'm going to make a companion video today. And also, for those of you who watched the Spider-Man Far From Home open spoiler discussion this weekend, that companion video is coming today as well. So we got 2 companion videos coming today, the Spider-Man spoiler discussion and the companion video for all the rest of the questions to get here today. Again, I apologize, but I just don't want things to just cut out of nowhere accidentally. So we're going to cut short for now. Don't worry, guys. We'll be back to full running time tomorrow. And of course, we will be back again tomorrow. Once again, tomorrow, I've got Aaron Cummings is going to be here joining us. Robert Meyer Burnett is going to be here joining us. Hopefully, you guys will be here to join us too. So that'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks so much for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.